Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Spirion's latest Tech Talk, How to Rein in a Runaway Data Risk with Enhanced Analytics. I'm your host, Tony Napolillo. And as you can imagine, every day, quintillions of bytes of data are generated. Organizations around the world, including your own, rely on it to run all aspects of operations. However, all this data also offers an attractive target, large attack surface, and heightened threat of data breaches. Joining us today to discuss how enhanced analytics delivers a comprehensive view of your sensitive data risk posture is Spirion Solution Engineer Jason Price. Hello, Jason.
Hello, everybody.
And over the next 15 to 20 minutes, he's going to run you through Spirion's enhanced analytics, its functionality, and how it can help reduce your data risk. We'll also save time at the end to answer your questions. You can submit those anytime using the Q&A button at the top. And if for any reason we can't address your questions during the webinar today, we'll reach out to you directly afterwards. Okay, I think that covers the intro, Jason. Why don't you take it from here?
All right, thank you. So, quick agenda. Obviously, we're going to talk about the problem itself. We're then going to address some of the things from a standpoint of Spirion being able to assist. We're not going to dive into too much about Spirion's effective task itself. We're going to be talking more about, from simply a reporting and a data export scenario, what Spirion is capable of doing. Then I will show you a couple examples of how we can take some of the data that's being provided and turn it into a easily digestible, broadly consumable sort of presentation / dashboard that can be used to better translate some of the raw data that Spirion's going to be able to provide. So first off, the data security governance evolution. So, as Tony mentioned, data proliferation, we're seeing tons and tons of information being generated, both organically and inorganically now due to the prevalence of AI, language modeling, things of that nature. So of all of that information that's being generated, there's no real way to know how much of that is going to be sensitive or what's going to be sensitive based on whatever specific regulation or internal policy has been created. Going right into number 2, the data privacy regulations. Global privacy regulations have developed more in the past 24 months than in the preceding century. Yes, as more data is created, more securities and methods and processes are put in place to ensure that that data doesn't end up in the wrong hands. More often than not now, we're hearing on the news about failures of security rather than the successes of security. So diving into data breaches, the size of them with the consolidation of information, people are putting more and more data in the same sources. So we want to be able to take and isolate out that specific information that we're going to be wanting to interact with, thereby giving more ability to better control where that information is. We want to isolate specific information while allowing more generic standard information to remain in a more available state. Lastly, data discovery, data classification. Consistently, the first step in implementing compliance frameworks and regulation protection is knowing what you're looking at, right? Being able to see the sorts of information that you want to be made aware of, whether that's DSPM, zero trust, the laundry list of NISTs or alphabet soup sort of other regulatory or compliance bodies that are out there. They're constantly telling us new things we want to be on the lookout for. So having the ability to kind of explore that in a more broad sense is something that you can use some more advanced analytics or advanced reporting to assist with. The whole function about not being able to manage what you can't measure. It goes right back to what we were talking about a little bit ago. IBM Hanman says that 53% of the organizations studied don't prioritize risks, threats, and impacts based on risk qualification. Yet this process was discovered to have a significant effect of around $2.1 million in savings on data breach costs. So organizations who prioritized risk, threats, and impact based on risk quantification techniques had an average breach cost of 3.3 million versus the 5.4 million for those that didn't. Even going as far as saying, using security automation to be able to take some of the more, I won't say generic, but the more daunting tasks, the more repetitive tasks, and in going through and dealing with some of that information can also cut that breach cost, both from a preventative standpoint. You do more with the same amount of resources, but also taking the automated steps to go through and sort of clean up some of that information, looking at things, shadow data, proliferation of data as the migration of information or the duplication of information starts to kind of, exist over more and more of a footprint in a larger and a larger space. Being able to quickly and really easily go through and identify the more common entities of information is really where we're going to be focusing today. So to that effect, Spirion offers a couple different ways in which we, give you the ability to view that data. Everything from the basic executive dashboard when you log into the Spirion SDP console, going a little bit deeper, the SDV3 risk dashboard, and then what we're going to be talking more about today, the Spirion enhanced analytics and the outputs from custom reports. So each of these serve a different purpose. They also generally will feed information to a different subset of user. Like we see here, this executive dashboard, more high end. You want the not necessarily generic information, but you want the broadest scope of information. Sensitive data SDV3 dashboard, once again, it's a broad stroke. It's information that's not specifically targeted at a certain problem, more giving you a grand overview of the environment in general. Spirion Enhanced Analytics is what we're going to be talking about today. So giving you the ability to take and go beyond basic dashboard information. Dashboards are fantastic for understanding status at a high level and focusing on like KPIs or whatnot. Sometimes what you need are granular information to generate customized reports, integrate with business intelligence systems, feed data to another line in a business system. That's where Spirion Enhanced Analytics really comes into play. So for more data-intensive organizations, Spirion provides powerful computing and analytics capabilities on the entirety of the data set rather than on that broad spectrum of information, allowing you to model the data how you want it, right? So taking and putting into a form that works for you to be able to drive sort of actionable insight from complex data, as well as displaying more real-time metrics in platforms like Power BI, or take feedback from Spirion, provide that into a SIM device. However you want to interact with the data outside of Spirion, is specifically where the Spirion Enhanced Analytics comes into play. So taking all of that information, I'm going to go ahead and drop out of the slideshow, and I'm going to show you a couple different examples of how we can take that information and put it to use in different ways. So in the slideshow, so the first thing we're looking at here is Power BI. So assuming everybody is familiar with Power BI, all we're doing here is we're making a call into the SQL data warehouse. So if you've ever seen a demo of Spirion, we talk about the customized reporting options that are available. All this is taking that same information that's used to generate custom reports and looking at it from a direct query perspective. Now, the direct query perspective can function both as a SQL data warehouse, but also for more intensive sort of computational reporting that we might be doing. We do offer the ability to utilize Spirion resources to do the computational component of this, thereby making the end result something that you can consume without any real hardware overhead. So taking even the most basic of information, so looking at file type information, file location information, and just converting that into something a little bit easier to digest. So at the top, I've got locations containing PII data and weighted average matches per location by endpoint name. It's a big, long title for something really straightforward. Looking at individual endpoints, I'm looking at the locations that contain PII data, which is what's determining the size of the square. And then we're looking at the weighted average matches per location. So 48 matches on average per location and 6,800 locations for this specific endpoint are why this one's bigger. Now, the other workstation has a similar number as far as the locations containing PII, but that average weighted matches per location is double. So that is red, indicating that this, even though the spread of data is the same, the amount of threat is something that needs to be taken into account. Now, Power BI gives us the ability to make this a whole lot more interactive just through its own inherent capabilities. So by clicking on this single machine, now all of the other fields below here have subsetted themselves to only show information specific to this machine. So 710 files that are not classified. We've got 396 that are classified as classified, and then 160 that are classified as secret. I can even take this and work this in reverse. If I wanted to only look at secret documents, if I only wanted to look at PII, I only wanted to look at things that are classified as classified, and as would be expected, you can interact with individual files and locations just by clicking on the bottom here. Now, this isn't a complex thing that was done. This is two pieces of data. This is that dim endpoint and then the location information that's just been presented in a way that makes it a little bit easier to consume and for a more targeted approach when it comes to the reporting or the ability to locate where a specific risk might lie. This is a better way for a practitioner or a data steward to interact with that information. So Power BI is really the evolution of Power Pivot from Excel, which is where we're going to go look from the second point. So Excel gives us the ability to connect to SQL to pull data. I've done that here just by taking the same information that we were just looking at in Power BI, except now it's being shown as a data table. Now, being shown as a data table is really fun and all, but it's not really what we're here to look at. So taking that information and breaking it down into something just indicating what machines have more information and which number of that is protected versus unprotected information. It's a very straightforward pivot table, no real complexity here, but also taking that same quantity of information, I can go and I can look at of the information that exists in the system, is more of it recent? Do we have information that is old that we're seeing a lot more content be created from? We can put that really quickly and easily into display here through Excel. But where we really get to have a little bit of fun is we can start asking Excel or even Power BI to do this work for us. I import the information I want to see. I tell Excel to analyze it. And then it uses its resources to provide things that it sees. So I can get a great example. It's given me almost 40 individual observations that it's made and is providing me the ability to then automatically sort and assemble that content so I can see where there is a relationship that may not be clearly visible, but can be something that you can then utilize, what Microsoft has built all of this for. So Power BI has a very similar option where you can do analytics, or you can even do, nowadays, you can do AI analysis of the information. even in its raw form, feeding this information into a SIM tool to, associate specific on-premise or cloud locations with types of information so that the SIM tool is aware when it's making a decision, based on traffic flow or movement or data, or even as far as the persistent metadata tags that Spirion's able to apply. It can, consume all of this information very easily to give you a lot more of an informed feedback in what it's designed to do. So taking the little bit of information that we provide, now be very clear, none of this is going to ever contain any of the specific sensitive information. This is all tertiary data. The file name is as close as we're going to get. We'll say it's a social security number, but the match value itself is not even available in this warehouse. It will never be available in this warehouse. And the two items are completely disconnected from each other outside of the sync cycle that they maintain. So I know we went over quite a bit of stuff. So I've covered the basics here. I'm really excited to hear if there are any questions. If anybody has anything they want explained in a little bit more detail, I'll go ahead and reserve the rest of the time here for taking those questions and answering them as best I can for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. We do have a question. And if anyone else has questions, please get those in now in the QA button at the top. Someone would like to know if you could provide more detailed information or use cases for databases, SQL, MongoDB, etc.
Yeah. So because of the way that we collect the information, we're obviously able to see based on individual connections. So like this is a test Snowflake account that I was doing. But it's also showing me the database name, and it's showing me the table name that's associated with that specific match. So you could use this in a model to see, based on the host for the database and the security measures applied to the host for that database, if the amount of security that's currently being executed in that system meets the requirements based on the content contained therein. That also would tie into something like the SDV3 data asset inventory. Both of those things can be used in conjunction with each other. Also, if you're in the process of cleaning up a database, right, moving sensitive information off of one database into another one that's more secure, you can track that progress using a histogram. As we sync the information, you can keep a tally and watch as the amount of sensitive information decreases in the one environment and increases into the other. But it's really a matter of creativity and how you want to express it, but we give you all the tools and all the information necessary to put that together in whatever form you might want to see it.
Wonderful. We do have another question coming in. Is this reporting capability available with your on-premise solution or just with your cloud offering? So SDM versus SDP.
Yep. So SDM, because it's locally hosted, the ability to make queries into that database are completely at your disposal. So making those similar queries would be you going directly into your SQL database that's hosting SDM and then extracting this information, whereas we're making a separate call into an externally hosted database in the Spirion cloud environment here. So you can do this with both SDM and SDP. The principal difference is that SDP has the option to take on the computational power and the various requirements for doing all of this, so that from a front end perspective, you would just be able to act as a dumb terminal to consume this information without handling any of the processing. But yeah, great question. Completely possible to do this on SDM, just like you would do it on SDP.
All right, unless we have any other questions that come in, that is our time today. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you those who did submit your questions, and thank you, Jason. This Tech Talk was recorded and will be sent to all attendees to watch again or share within your organization. Please reach out if you have any further questions or explore Spirion.com. Goodbye, everybody, and remember to protect what matters most.